Hi, everybody. Welcome to the GNN Steiger Olson Report. And we have a very, very special guest, Michael Horn. Hello, Michael.
Hi, how are you guys?
We're doing great. Hello, Michael from Denver, Colorado.
You're up 7,000 feet as well.
Yes. So, we appreciate you coming on, Michael, and it's just a great honor to have you here, and we're certainly excited to hear what you have to say.
It's my pleasure, really. Any opportunity I get to reach an audience of interested people who want to know more about the Meyer case, I'm there. So thanks.
Right on. And so just to kind of give, if you don't know who Michael Horn is, now listen to this. He is the authorized American media representative for the Billy Meyer contacts, www.thefly.com, which he has researched since 1979. 1979, and has proved to be absolutely authentic. And I have also researched this case through your eyes, Michael, seeing your documentaries and your work. And I'm completely convinced of this story, so I'm already biased. He is the writer. Wayne is always my balance because he's always there to balance me out. He is the writer and producer of a new award-winning feature-length documentary, The Silent Revolution of Truth, as well as the writer, producer, and narrator of the DVD, The Meyer Contacts, The Key to Our Future Survival. Now, Michael, just to start out a little bit, can you tell us who Billy Meyer is? I mean, a lot of people have never heard of Billy Meyer.
Sure. Billy Meyer is a now 80-year-old Swiss man. He lost his left arm back in about 1964, 65 maybe, in Turkey in a bus and truck accident. He claims that ever since he was a 5-year-old boy, he's been having face-to-face meetings with extraterrestrial human beings who we today know as the Pleiaren, and formerly as the Pleiadians. There is no such thing as Pleiadian because there's no life in the Pleiades. That's another story as to how that came about. But he is the single authentic contactee, the only case that's scientifically proven where there is contact between an Earthman and extraterrestrials. And what I'd add to that is when I do my presentations, what I usually do is I say the confirmed existence of extraterrestrial life, meaning intelligent extraterrestrial life, would be the single most important discovery, event, story, whatever, in human history, exceeded only by confirmed contact between said extraterrestrials and Earth people or an Earth person. In this case, we have 75 years worth of evidence, if you will. And this is what makes it, for me, such a compelling, portion of my life.
And this is such a fascinating story, and I'm sure, going to give us a little outline of it here soon. But one of the things, how did you come to be the official media representative for his organization?
In a couple of words, I asked.
I love it.
I'd like to do this, okay? What happened is, over the years, from 79 on, I was gradually getting educated in this material when available. It actually would take another 7 years till 1986 for me to find the first available translations and documentation on the and in the case. Several years after that, it wasn't until about 2000, and I'd been doing presentations on this since about 1988. It wasn't until right about 2000 I went to Switzerland for the first time, and I first met Billy and other people there, family members, group people who help him and all that. And I came back almost every year. I think I missed a year and then came twice in another year or something. Anyway, about 2004, I think that's the time I said, listen, because, each year you come and people get to know you a little more and you get to know them. And that takes, getting not only familiar, but building a little bit of trust. And of course, you're only seeing a guy for a week or so at a time every year. And of course, I was staying in touch with them from that point on. But it was in 2004 that I then asked if I could officially represent them and meaning that I would represent them for free. They wouldn't pay me. I wouldn't pay them. I could maintain my independence that way. I could be free to agree, disagree. I could say, I don't know if something's so. I could use language that was just nice and honest and straight ahead. And they agreed. And I'm now actually in my second 7-year agreement with them, because in 2011, we re-upped, I guess.
You must have been doing well then, Michael.
Well, I'm trying to be careful, because, the thing that has plagued this situation for far longer, actually, than even our contemporary times, what has plagued it has been the misinterpretation, miscommunication, corruption, manipulation, editing, redacting of very ancient material, all connected to this case. So it's happened even in these times. So we try to be very careful to not, make errors that are going to be, pardon me, very difficult to correct or damaging.
What would you say that you found most striking about Billy as you've gotten to know him over the years?
It's just completely, truly normal, human, decent, caring vibe. That's just one adjective. I don't want to overpaint it anyway, because he doesn't project specialness. He doesn't project, guru-itis, where people sitting and smiling and grinning. Right. He's just a normal, decent human being who maintains. This is what I would say is most unusual, is that he's able to maintain a certain type of equanimity and presence. Neutrality is a word that we use a lot, and there is a neutrality, a great neutrality to what Billy projects and is about. And neutrality doesn't mean indifference. It doesn't mean being namby-pamby. It doesn't mean not holding strong opinions. It just means that a person isn't flaring up all over the place about things while, emotionally, while you can still just interact on every level as a genuine human being. And that means I've seen Billy through, a full range of behaviors and expressions, and yet he just always has a certain kind of presence that isn't mystical. It's just kind of the way human beings, in my opinion, should evolve themselves to be, so that we are not shooting off emotionally and irrationally about things. We can disagree. We can say we don't know. We can have strong opinions, but we don't have to lose our center, our essence.
Yes.
And he's very receptive to people. Whether it was with my own personal interaction with him or the interactions I've observed, he holds that kind of openness towards people.
I get a sense of humility from him when I see his pictures. He just seems to be a very humbled soul.
I'll use different words because they're very particular about words in this case, in the teaching and all, because of the way English has been corrupted and used to project different meanings. Rather than being humble, right? People would say, humility is important. I said, well, I'm a very humble person. Now, I joke about it, but it isn't humility, it's modesty. Because
yes.
Without trying to offend anybody and their beliefs, humility is tied very much in with a religious belief and a religious context, a kind of a cowering about some being that's supposed to exist, about whom we're supposed to have fear and be humble and bow our heads and kneel down. That's conveyed in a lot of religion.
I'd agree with you.
Right. We don't subscribe to any of that. So modesty is a different matter, and it's a matter in which a person neither has false or false. So the ego level in there is balanced. The ego is a necessary part.
Yes.
Of all of us, and we need it to navigate life, but also we need to rest in a certain kind of neutrality and a modesty, whatever level of accomplishment or lack thereof we have in the world, because it's very important. It's conveyed in this case. That while not everybody has equal abilities or equal accomplishments, equal intelligence, equal this, all human beings are of equal value. And that is part of what we discover, we read about, and let's say in the spiritual teaching, we're in something that is far larger and far more intricate and far more magnificent, if you will, than I think any of our philosophies, religions, etc., actually grasp. So modesty is not to be humble and head bowed down, nor is it to be beating one's chest. It's, so I don't want to overtalk it. It's just one of those things. And they don't even use the word soul, because soul is a term that relates more to that area of the solar plexus. And the term that they use is psyche. This is the psyche. So if we want to talk about the common understanding of the soul, the psyche/soul is a transitory element. It isn't the permanence of the human being. It dissolves at the end of each life, of which they say we have quite a few. And it is the spirit, the human spirit, which is based deep within the center of the brain, that is the eternal, immortal part of human beings. So we're jumping right now in this part of the conversation right into what is the essence of this case. It's the spiritual teaching. Now, there's plenty of fascinating things to talk about. The eye candy, as I now call it, the UFOs.
Well, again, I think that for the benefit of the audience, too, I think we need to talk about this story. It's a fantastic story. I mean, if you've never been in contact with the Billy Meyer story, could you just kind of take us through a summary of what happened to Billy and how he came to some of this knowledge?
Sure, because it's an integral part. I mean, obviously, while I flip about eye candy, it's pretty important stuff. We have a gallery of photographs. Let's take it back to Billy Meyer, known as Edward Albert Meyer, as a child. He's 5 years old, and he actually gets a bit of a telepathic communication. This startles him. He's a kid growing up in rural Switzerland, and he hears an elderly man's voice speaking to him in his head. And it's kind of like, what's this? And it's, takes him a little bit by surprise. A short while later, he feels, this is not, I don't mean minutes, probably more like days. He is drawn to go deeper into the forest area that is near his home where he lives. And in a clearing, he sees a pear-shaped craft on 3 struts sitting there on the ground. And in front of it is an elderly man in a deep sea diving outfit, if you will. And that's how it looks to him without the helmet. So it's like a spacesuit. He had no context for that other than a deep sea diver's suit. And he recounts that this man was just very friendly, non-threatening. There was a nice, benevolent feeling that came from him. Now, this is going back to 1942, where already you have not so much of the kind of concerns that we have in the world these days. It wasn't that it didn't go on, but it wasn't like the world of rampant pedophiles. So he's growing up in a nice, little rural area. And that began the face-to-face, voluntary, wide-awake contacts that young Meyer would have that extend to this day, not with the same person. That man passed away when Meyer was about 11. And then his contacts began with a woman named Esket, who actually came, we're told, can't prove this one, comes from an adjoining universe. I should say that during the first 11 years, Meyer was tutored and mentored by this man, Svath, and he conveyed so much information to him. He took him different places on our world, where he met people who either were or would become major players in the world stage at a time. He took him off of our world. He showed him our moon and perhaps some other places in the solar system. He had quite a tremendous education. On our blog, we recently posted a letter, information that Meyer was receiving from Svath when he was only 11 years old, I guess shortly before Svath died, 1948, explaining what events were going to unfold on Earth. There were a couple of these letters. We have them on my blog. And they are startling. They are absolutely startling. You just, gosh, you're reading this stuff and you're going, wait a minute, that's happened. This is happening. And you mean this is coming? So this was the beginning of the conveyance of all sorts of prophetic information that Meyer would publish. Some information, prophetic information, he himself would author. And this was, an astounding experience that was so overwhelming in some ways in its early stages for him that he consulted with a local parish priest, Father Zimmerman. And Father Zimmerman had been telepathically contacted as well by Svath, and so he was prepared to mentor and counsel young Edward, because at that point he couldn't even tell his family about this. It was so unusual. So we have then, 11 years later, we have the contacts with Ascot start, and then in 1975, the official contacts take place with Semyaze, her father, Ptah, and Quetzal. As you can see right there, we're talking about just that, it turns out. Yeah. And so these are people who are rather remarkable. They are human beings, just like we are, physical bodies. They look very much like Earth people, as we say, and they live for approximately 1,000 years, in some cases more, in some cases slightly less. We will ultimately, much later in our history, if we survive our insanity, we will regain our long lifespans as well.
I'm just curious, when you're telling this story, what is their view of death? I mean, it seems like there is a passing of, these bio bodies that we hold. So I'm just curious, do they give any insight on that?
Quite a bit. The spiritual teaching is where you find a lot of that. I'll give it to you in a nutshell. I just want to organize it a little bit so I can.
Sure.
Okay. So what happens when we die, all of the essence of what we've lived, our experiences, our thoughts, feelings, etc., are stored. They become absorbed by the spirit, and they are stored in what are called the storage banks as information. This is kind of a very loose overview of it. The thing that is called the soul, the psyche, which is, embodies a lot of the nerve plexus plus the personality and all of that, that information is also stored and absorbed, etc. And this part dissolves into energy. The human body dies. It cannot be reanimated once you're really dead. A near-death experience is not death. It's something else, and it's not really going into, the other realm. The other realm is called the beyond by them, to make it simple. In other words, the spirit itself goes into a kind of ethereal or etheric realm for a period of time that used to amount to about 1.5 times the lifespan. So if a person was living to be 70 years of age, then the spirit would not reincarnate for 100 years and change, 105 years, whatever it is. So what happens nowadays is that's much shorter. I don't want to go too far afield, but what reincarnates is not the personality. We're never the same personality. The spirit reincarnates, and that happens on the 21st day. When the embryo reaches the 21st day, the heart starts beating, the spirit comes into the center of the brain, and the fetus becomes the embryo becomes the fetus. Right. And so a little side note on that, with abortion, for instance, in our world, we have the abortion under no circumstances, abortion under any circumstances, extremes. There's elements of truth to both, because if this is true from the Plejaren people, what they say is true for them is that up until the 21st day, should there be an accidental or unwanted pregnancy for some reason, health, whatever, they allow abortion. They use planty substances, they say natural substances, to abort. Past the 21st day, they don't do it because they know through their science, which we don't even know that there's a human spirit. We believe it or we don't.
Right.
So they say past the 21st day, they don't do that. There could possibly be an extreme exception where there was some kind of a crisis that would endanger the mother's life, but they control their world pretty highly, where they're not as accident prone by a long shot as we are still. So the spirit goes into the beyond. It is there, and at a certain point in time, on a vibrational level, it is attracted to a fetus being, developed by a particular woman, parent.
Right.
And it goes in. We don't know our parents, choose our parents. There's no afterlife the way people think about it in the religious terms. It's going to be rough news for people that blow themselves up to meet 72 virgins.
Yeah.
And it's going to be rough news for people that are waiting to get a harp and sit on a cloud and play it for all eternity, or to gamble through some pastoral heaven with all of our relatives and friends, cheering and smiling. It doesn't happen.
Or the other of hell, fire, and brimstone, and eternal torment, which implies that somehow or another the spirit or the soul is somehow able to feel pain. Which, anyway, I love that. I love what you're just saying, Michael.
Well, this is, part of it. It's explained in much better detail in the teaching, but also, this idea of pain and torment, of being punished by a God of love and mercy. I mean, we're not proponents of any of that stuff. It's so irrational, and it's driving the world. It's one of the major driving forces of what could end our life on this world.
We wholeheartedly agree. We completely agree with that. And
which is a perfect segue, Steve, into our next question. What is coming? We talk about the civil wars, right? Can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Yes, a little bit. What I can say in terms of what's coming, I'll take it back to this. I mentioned the 1948 letter, which is freely available on my blog. And just to tell people, if people can't find something, they can email me. I answer all my email. It takes me a little while, but I answer all the stuff. And
we are.
It's like this way. But so because, for instance, you're looking at the Henoch prophecies and this prophecy, all of this information, the prophetic information, starting as we have already spoken back in the 1940s, young Meyer is being told, and in some cases shown, these future events. And some things he has to remain quiet about for a long time. Some things he may probably never be allowed to speak about. But they are able to know, to a certain degree, through technology, and in some cases through consciousness, specific things that will occur in the future. In fact, this thing called the Henoch prophecies, which we refer to quite a bit because in there the coming civil wars are foretold. Actually, for the first time in 1981, Meyer's told about it, and then again in 87 here. These are actually authored more than 10,000 years ago by the prophet Enoch, or Henoch, as they call him.
Right.
And when you go through all this, and it is not given in chronological order. So, for instance, if you look, I don't know if your viewers can see that down there. If you look at number 175, for instance, and it will be the fanatics of Islam will rise up against the countries of Europe, and all will shake and quiver. Everything in the world will be destroyed. England will be conquered and thrown down to the lowest level of misery. And the fanatics and warriors of Islam will retain their power for a long time. It talks about the fall of the Catholic Church on the same screen here. You were up a little higher on this before, where they're talking about different things happening. If you put if you just do a search term WTC in that Henoch prophecies, in the Henoch prophecies.
You have to go to there you go.
Okay. Right in there, in the Henoch prophecies. I don't know if you can do a search on that page
Yeah,
just,
I'll figure it out.
yeah, it's kind of like, for me, I do Control F, and then I just type in WTC. And if not, on the they fly search, there you can do it too. But if you've got a Control F function, whatever, yeah, WTC.
Michael, we're seeing this come to pass. I mean, I'm sitting here, and as we were reading that,
Hannock Prophecies, number 222, I guess. Yes. So on the Hannock Prophecies page, I think if we go to 222, it might be there. Yeah. So look at above, though, where we talk about, he says destruction in North America, 217. Far in the West, it will be different. The United States of America will be a country of total destruction. The cause for this will be, this was from 1987, written originally in 10,000 years ago.
Look at that. And we have seen this. It's like a slow-moving train wreck, isn't it?
And in some cases faster, some cases slower.
Yeah.
I mean, it says here, with its global conflicts, which are continuously instigated by it and which will be continued far into the future, America is creating enormous hatred against itself worldwide.
Well, have we not seen that just manifest multifold?
Since for decades. As a result, America will experience enormous catastrophes which will reach proportions barely imaginable to people of Earth. The destruction of the WTC, the World Trade Center, by terrorists will only be the beginning.
Wow.
So, look, this document foretells one of the startling things in here. We've had this document in English since 2002. Well, people will say, well, how do we know it was really published in 1987? The way you can know is the things that happened after this document was even available in English. For instance, and this is true of all these prophetic documents, and some things, of course, are in books and there's copyrights and you can tell, okay, it's right here. He did, he published it. We're not trying to fool you. So what happens is, in this document, it says that Russia's going to move their troops to a place called Arkhangelsk. Oh, yeah, and by the way, if you look at 223 here, enormous firestorms and gigantic hurricanes will sweep over the USA and bring devastation, destruction, and annihilation, as this from time immemorial never before will have happened. Let me say a little more. I'll get back to the other thing. This is connected to what will happen if we pursue this insane policy of provoking Russia. Had Hillary Clinton been elected president, and we learned from the play Aaron in 2008 that she wouldn't be, but had she been, we would be marching into a nuclear war, an unprovoked nuclear war with Russia. There are people around Trump who are also trying to push him into that. This whole stupid thing about Russia hacking the election is a fraud.
Yes.
The Play Aaron have said it. Even when they talked to Billy in June, and when they said, by the way, this is a great one to highlight here. When they told Meyer in June that Trump would be the president, that he must not say anything about it because Democrats and people in the Secret Service would kill him if they knew he was going to win. It's not so far-fetched now based on what we see.
Well, we have a story later, Michael, that we're going to be doing of a internal investigation from the Secret Service that Secret Service agents were in the bedroom of President Trump's grandchildren taking selfies of them and the sleeping children. Now, if this isn't an alarming situation, when you just gave me that scenario, listen, I think Senator John McCain is one of those individuals that is pushing for this annihilation, this war.
Yes, and behind the scenes, the Clintons are still involved and others. And, when you said that, it reminds me of something because people have said, well, Trump, he'll be okay, blah, blah, blah. What happened for instance, with Obama, just to go back to it, Obama came into office, and again, we're not partisan of political and all this stuff. Obama came into office with lots of ideas. He wanted to do good things for people in the country. And I think he was actually set up from the beginning by people who saw his potential as a charismatic, highly intelligent person who could bring the country together. And once he got in, then they told him the way things worked. You know, it's kind of like, let's show you this Zapruder film if you don't remember Kennedy getting his brains blown out. And then the same thing, and you just said it, and I've been saying this to people for a long time about Obama and about Trump. Then if they need to make the point, they say, you have a lovely family, don't you?
Don't you?
Yes.
Yeah, it's not a direct threat, but the implications are weighty, are they not?
They are, and the fact of the matter, when like Schumer was saying, well, you know, the CIA can get to you 6 ways to Sunday or whatever, these are threats that are real because, for instance, you know about the Vault 7 release of wiki information, right?
Yes, we've been reporting on that, Michael.
Billy Meyer published key information about the essence of those things. I have it on site from 2006 and 2007. The CIA, he laid out the reality. The CIA is the real world government. They have weaponry available to them. As Meyer said, our armed forces would be envious. He already published in 2007 the NSA CIA backdoor through Microsoft into your computers, televisions, everything. They know, like we're actually mentioned briefly in WikiLeaks by some guy that I was corresponding with briefly in an intelligence gathering company. I thought it was a little more benign, and it turns out he's one of those people that feeds, into the intelligence agency. And he said, they fly, the name alone scares me.